Greetings, everyone. We are from Group 11. I'm Fadlin Izhar Tarigan, along with my friend Agustinus Yudhistira Wicaksono and um, Oktavelen Ginting, and also two others, my friend Sunusi Abdullahi and Wildan Dzulqarnain. Unfortunately, Mr. Sunusi Abdullahi and Mr. Muhammad Wildan cannot attend this meeting due to another agenda. So there are only three people will present uh, this presentation. This presentation entitled with 2020 until 2050 South Sumatra Energy Sector Planning and Modeling using LEAP software. Okay, next. Okay, okay. As introduction, we have the incomplete data that while developing the module, there are several incomplete data such as demand data, especially in household module. Second one, demand data growth in different scenarios, specific data for South Sumatra province, power plant capacity growth in BAU scenario, and many other factors. To tackle these factors and minimize inaccurate modeling, we use several approaches. First one, we made assumptions on the household module based on average household energy consumption on lighting, cooking, etc. Lack of the data from RUPTL to 2050, no sign of PLTU and PLTM, conventional power plant, decreasing, and many other manipulations that we did in this analysis. Next. Scenario list and abbreviations. For business and usual, BAU, business run as before based on RUED. Second one of GOV, government target sets by the government. Mainly, we took the data based on RUPTL. For the third scenario, ambitious scenario created by Group 11 to accelerate the net zero emission transition in 2050. RE improvement based on Indonesia energy outlook and enhancement from RUED and RUPTL. Next. Content outline. From our scenarios, BAU, GOV, AMB, we have three content outline of modules. The first one of the demand module. There's comparison between sectors and analysis: household sector, transportation sector, industry sector, and commercial sector. The second one, transformation module, first overview of power plant capacity, and RE mix based on power plant capacity. The third one of the resource module, we seek for the production of the resources and GHG emission rate and quantity for each scenarios. Next. Here are the general tree diagram of the task. On our left, we see that there's module to be modeled South Sumatra, consisting of key assumptions and so on. And we can see that there are still some scenarios for the key assumptions: income, population, household size, and so on. Same thing with demand module, transformation module, and resource module. Okay, next please. Okay, here we see the demand module, the energy demand comparison between sectors from the three sectors. As we see that the increasing level of BAU is slightly higher than the other sectors. Our modeling is based on RPTL, Indonesia Energy Outlook, and BPS, the Indonesian Statistic Bureau. The energy demand in South Sumatra dominated by industrial and commercial demand. Transportation demand seems lower in GOV and AMB scenario. Why? We'll see the analysis section. Next, please. Okay, so the analysis, the energy demand transition seems lower in GOV and AMB scenario because of the transition through electric vehicle, EV cars specifically, from conventional vehicle powered by gasoline. The main reasons are separated into two. The first one is efficiency of the machine, and the second one is the conservation of the fuel. Efficiency of an electric vehicle reaches up to approximately 90%, while efficiency of a gasoline car is around 12 to 30%. From this fact, it's directly accounted for less energy consumption on electric vehicles for farther distance as well as higher load. The second one is the conversion of the fuel. As we know, gasoline usually use liter unit for its volume unit. If we convert the liter to equivalent energy for gasoline, we get 1 liter equal to 34.2 megajoule compared to 1 kilowatt hour equal to 3.6 megajoule. And if we compare the energy consumption of gasoline car, we take the example of Ayla, one of the minibus, 21 kilometers per liter, and EV car of 0.2 kilowatt hours per kilometer. For 21 kilometer, we get 34.2 megajoule for gasoline car and 15.12 megajoule for EV. These two main reasons therefore explain the situation. Thank you. We'll continue with my friend. Please, Agustinus.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Adin. I will continue from here. So the next one is the demand module, specifically in household sector. So we can see from these three graphs, in all this scenario, the growth is higher in electricity demand. As we know, the world is transition towards clean energy and mainly use many electricity. So it is demonstrated from the plots that the amount of household electrical demand, according to considered metrics like electronic or electrical appliance and many more, is increasing annually, which shows that the household energy demand is positively and significantly influenced by the said metrics like the electronic or electrical appliance. For example, in the cooking module, we could see the growth is due to more use of electric stove and lighting. We use more energy efficiency light bulb like neon or LED that consume less and less more electricity, and many more like refrigeration and other use. Okay, now in the transportation sector, we could see in the BAU graph or business as usual, we could see that the electricity growth is slow compared to gasoline and diesel growth. This scenario was happened because the transition toward EV or electrical vehicle is slow compared to GOV and AMB scenario. And we could see in the GOV and AMB scenario, the electricity growth is quite high because the transition towards the EV is high. As we can see, electricity grows slowly on transportation in BAU scenario due to low transition rate towards electric vehicle. And the electricity growth in gasoline and diesel is decreasing for transportation sector in GOV or government and AMD scenario due to the rapid transition into electric vehicle. Okay, now in the industry sector, as we can see, the pulp and paper for all scenarios in South Sumatra region is still the main industry to South Sumatra. So we can see from industry sector, the energy demand of South Sumatra dominated by industry pulp and paper, which is from 2020, pulp and paper is 72%, rubber 10.36%, CPO or crude palm oil is 0.11%, and rubber is 16.91%. And we can see the production of the pulp and paper industry is the highest when compared to other industries. It means more demand for them to produce. The growth rate that we sum for 2% for BAU scenario. So we use assumption for BAU scenario, 2% growth and 2.5% growth for GOV scenario and 3% growth for AMB scenario. Okay, the next one is the overview of power plant capacity. As we can see from these three graphs, this graph depicts a trend for BAU, GOV, and AMB power plant capacity. So we could see this graph was modeled by mainly based on RUED, RUPTL, and Indonesian Energy Outlook and BPS. So in 2050, for GOV and AMB scenario, new renewable energy-based power plants such as PLTSA, PLTBio, and PLTA will be established. So new renewable energy power plant will exist in GOV and AMB scenario. And for BAU and AMB scenario, PLTU, PLTMG, PLTG, and PLTG. So this is the conventional power plant that mainly use coal and natural gas decrease, while renewable energy power plants like PLTA, PLTS, etc. increase in capacity. Meanwhile, on Gulf scenario, PLTU, PLTG, there is no intention to decreasing capacity rate while increasing rate of renewable energy power plants. So in the government scenario from the RPTL document we use to model this power plant capacity, there are no sign of decreasing the PLTU capacity while keep pushing the new renewable energy power source. So the next one is the graph that show the comparison of the three scenario. So we can use from this. So we can see from this graph, the capacity of South Sumatra power plant will become 3.9 gigawatt in 2050 for BAU scenario. Then capacity of South Sumatra power plant will become 5.8 gigawatt in 2050 for Gulf scenario and will become 6.9 gigawatt in 2050 for AMB scenario. So this capacity rise is directly related to the population rise, thus increase the demand of household, industry, transportation, and commercial consumption. So for the node, this capacity is added with existing capacity of 2.1 gigawatt based on RUPTL data. So this graph doesn't show the historical production, but just show the added capacity. So for the final data we give here, we add it with 2.1 gigawatt based on RUPTL data. Okay, so the next one is the renewable energy mix. So as we can see, for the BAU, we could see the renewable energy mix is 29.3% for BAU scenario, and then 27.2% for Gulf scenario, and 75% for AMB scenario. So as we can see, renewable energy mix in Gulf scenario is lower compared to BAU scenario. Why is that happen? We could see in the analysis. So for the analysis, as can be seen from the renewable energy mix, we already see that the renewable energy mix in Gulf scenario is lower compared to BAU scenario. So it's happened because we could see from the capacity is much higher in Gulf scenario than in BAU scenario. And the government project to penetrate more renewable energy source, but still maintaining the conventional power plant such as PLTU, PLTMG, and many more to maintain the overall power plant capacity to fulfill the increasing demand. And in 2030, it seems that the government plan to add more 2.1 gigawatt of PLTU capacity in South Sumatra. So it is based on RUPTL document that will statistically saying the renewable energy mix is lower because of the renewable energy and PLTU increasing in parallel. So while in the BAU scenario, the penetration of renewable energy mix getting higher, and while the operation of conventional power plant getting lower. So as we could see, it is the reason why the capacity of BAU scenario is lower than in Gulf scenario. So in this scenario, the increase in air power plants is not accompanied by the addition of sufficient capacity to replace conventional generating capacity. That's why there is an increase in renewable energy penetration in the BAU scenario, but with a lower generating scenario. So to simplify for the AMB scenario, we could see that the renewable energy share is rise up to 80%, and simplify state in the AMB scenario, we push the renewable energy to replace the existing coal-fired power plant or natural gas power plant to get cleaner energy. The next one will be present by my friend, Mr. Oktavelen.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. And I will present about the resource module, and this is a production of the resource in the BAU scenario, government scenario, and ambitious scenario. As you can see from the graph, for all scenario, will still be the primary resource we produce, because as we know, one of the biggest our source in Indonesia is dominated by coal power plant, and from the AMA scenario, the coal production decreasing with the rise of solar and also the hydro power. And we want to see the cleaner energy source transition in the ambitious scenario. Next. From the emission, we can also see from the graph that in GHG decrease with a rate like 18% for BAU, or as usual, and from 13.7 million metric tons to 11.3 million metric tons. This case is shown in BAU scenario. The emission is decreasing, but we also know about the capacity is not as the same with the government scenario and also ambitious scenario. That's why, because we see from the capacity is lower because they put the renewable energy, but now not as long as we know there's no another energy to compare from the coal power plant. And the second one, GHG emission rise extremely with the rate like 113% for the Gulf scenario from the 12.8 to 27.3. And this happened because in LPTL, there's no data that we can see that intention to reduce the coal and gas power plant. So still keep using the fossil, and that's why the emission getting higher, different with the PAU or also ambitious. And we can see also this the capacity, but the capacity is still getting higher because it's between Gulf and also ambitious is really high capacity to keep the demand. So we can see from the graph. The last one is from ambitious scenario. There is an emission decrease with a rate really high, 48%, or from 14.5 to 7.5. Next. Okay, from the graph, we also see the analysis. We can see the rate of the GHG emission for Gulf scenario is the highest. We compare with the BAU scenario or ambitious scenario. Why this is happen? Because the penetration of renewable energy in the BAU scenario is higher than the government scenario. And the condition is caused by the planned reduction of the fossil power plants in RUED by 2050. But the implementation ignores the cumulative increase in generating capacity. And on the other hand, the government scenario based on the LPTL will still increase the penetration of renewable energy, but the government still have hopes to continue the develop and need to able to encourage demand growth in Sumatra system. That's why there's no intention from government or LPTL to decreasing the condition of the coal power plant, also and the gas power plant. And we can solely see from the LPTL, there is no intention, but still want to have push the penetration of the renewable energy. And from that case, it can be seen why GHG or emission is really high, increasing for Gulf scenario, and because they need to maintain the capacity to fulfill the demand while adding more renewable resource. And for the ambitious scenario or ambitious, we can see the maximum potential of the Sumatra, relying on the geothermal power plants and also hydropower plants and several other renewable energy plants, such as like solar power plants and also micro hydro, mini hydro, biomass, and also another kind of renewable energy. So you can see the emission value in the ambitious scenario is the lowest because we can put the highest or the maximum potential of the renewable energy ambitious scenario. Next. Okay, the additional notes we put for this case, because the GHG increasing in Gulf scenario, our group modeled by mainly affected by RPTL, that show no sign of the PLTO and PLTG reduction. From our perspective, seems reasonable enough. It is needed because of the rapid increase in demand. So the government need to fulfill the demand while increasing the renewable energy mix. And therefore, the GHG still increased because of the fact that government project to add total like 2,100 megawatts new PLTU capacity in 2030 based on the ROPTL document. Of course, this model is missing some accurate data because ROPTL that exists now is only have the time span of 10 years from now, like 2020 to 2030, and missing the data for the 2030 to from 2050. So we have to add several assumptions based on the existing document like ROAD that used to model based on its usual scenario and modify it to model the government scenario. The main assumption we made is we stop the growth of the PLTU in 2030 and keep it steady, not reduce nor increase because we don't have any data for the government target. So we decide not to make assumption on it, and more increase seems uncertain because of net zero emission target and innovation of technology to make renewable energy source more reliable and increase all the renewable energy power plant from 2030 to 2050 based on the trend from the RPTL document. Because of this added capacity, it seems reasonable that anomaly in GHG, especially in government scenario, that increase compared to the BAU scenario happen. Of course, our modeling can be improved enough if we get some insight about the new RUPTL document and model the growth statistically with a certain confidence level to get more accurate results about the GHG emission. So we basically we still need to accurate data about the RPTL because we know also the things outside our country also have a dynamic, and we need to see a bigger picture that what we need to do in Indonesia. And based on the RPTL, we still said from 2020 to 2030. We hope the assumption that we made is can correctly to put on this data. Next. So we go to the conclusion. For this conclusion, we have like 4 points. The first one is final energy demand of South Sumatra is dominated by industrial and commercial demand. Because we see the growth of the electric vehicle, we see it will be decreasing the transportation. So the part that still need more of energy is from the industrial and also the commercial. And the second one is in 2050, South Sumatra power plant capacity will become 3.9 gigawatts in 2050 from the usual scenario, and 5.8 gigawatts in 2050 from the government scenario, and 6.9 gigawatts about the ambitious scenario. The third one is renewable energy mix in South Sumatra has 29.3% from the scenario, 27.2% from the government scenario, and 75.5% for ambitious scenario. And the fourth and the last is GHG emission rise extremely with the rate like 113 for the government scenario, and decreasing with a rate like 18% and 48% for based on the usual and also the ambitious scenario. I think that's all from our group. Thank you for your attention, and we hope what we send and we present right now give you a lot of information, and I think that's all. Thank you very much.